Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
You know, we talk about the agnostic fans, maybe the fans that care about their own teams, but maybe don't care so much about what's going on from the rest of the country. And then you just have some people that are just straight up sickos, as my man Headgear College Football mentioned in our live chat right here, right now, right? If you're a truly sick human being, and I'm a truly sick human being, my co-host Reed here, he's a very sick individual himself. This is for you guys. Welcome to College Football Red Zone. You know, the exclusive home for 7+ hours of commercial-free college football. Reed, we have, I would say, a borderline diabolical episode here tonight. Would you agree?
I don't think I've ever talked so negatively about a collective group of anyone, anything, but tonight, we're talking worst of the worst, bottom of the barrel. You know, this is nothing personal against anyone that may go by name out here tonight, but we're talking stinky poo-poo garbage, like whatever definition you want to put on it. This is the worst of the worst tonight. So
yeah, and like Reed said, you know, like it's nothing personal. There are some places on here that, you know, would like to go and visit someday. So please don't ban us from your campus communities. If you end up on this list, there might even be a chance that some of these teams could, if things shake out the right way, they could actually make it to a bowl game and experience postseason eligibility. But you know, whenever you have like McDonald's or like a Taco Bell, and in the moment that McDonald's and Taco Bell is extremely extravagant. It feels extremely good to the taste buds.
Yeah.
And then the next day hits, and maybe your body doesn't love that McDonald's or Taco Bell the same way. It's essentially that tonight. So with that being said, Reed, first of all, thank you for coming on the show here tonight. And shout out as well to our partners over in Buzzer, being able to like live stream on their social media platform, which if you're looking for sports media only social media platform without the AI slop, you know, I definitely recommend giving you guys going over there, checking that out. Would genuinely appreciate it. But dude, Reed, you ready to get into some truly sicko behavior here tonight?
This is not for the faint of heart. Just saying, you know, a lot of people say they're a national college football show. Jake, this is the definition of a national college football show. Let me just put that out there again.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer definition of being a national college football show, because I just sat back and thought about this too, is that since we've done this little series, you know, we've did our top 25s, you know, across the board, as well as for the G6, like we in the span of 2 weeks, we kind of span like at least 80% of college football. I mean, I don't think a lot of other of these analysts can actually say that.
Yeah, and I mean, really, we only haven't hit like the middle, like 110 to, I don't know, like low 80s, low 70s potentially. Like,
Yeah.
We've hit pretty much the entire country for the most part.
Yeah, like if unless you're absolutely mid, I mean, like we didn't talk about you very much over the last couple of weeks, which is incredible to think about. So
Until tonight, there's gonna be a lot of mid talked about tonight.
Like mid.
Exactly.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into this like top 25, or I should say bottom 25. This is no kidding the worst of the worst in college football, I would imagine, or at least as of how things shake out. Because for me, I look at this as, these are teams that I think have the least benefit of the doubt going into the season.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. There's not a lot of room for error for these teams. Not for sure.
Definitely not a lot of error whatsoever. So, couple caveats before we kind of dive into these rankings here tonight is, so first and foremost, if you're number one on this list, this is the only time where you don't want to be number one. That means we see you as the worst G6 team in the country. Number two is second worst, et cetera, et cetera. And then if there was any times, because it wasn't just Reed and I that were voting on this, Colton of O&O Sports, who is happy to join us here in the live chat, as well as AT, who you guys know as Tampa 2 college football. So those two also voted on this thing as well. And so with that being said, if you like what you see here, please give all the credit to Reed and I.
Gonna like what they see here, Jake.
I see we're off to a great start already in the live chat. If you don't like what you see O&O talking very much in the live chat, you can blame him first and foremost.
Yes.
And secondarily, you can blame AT over at Tampa 2 college football. Great guys. Love those guys. But Reed and I do not take any accountability.
Yeah, Colton didn't even watch the games last year. So
yeah, exactly. He's like, what are we doing? Bozo?
He is a bozo.
But all right, let's go ahead and get into it. In the top two, really isn't much of a surprise here if you've been watching the live shows for quite some time. So UMass does come in at number one. They did get 2 of the 4 first place votes. Like when we were putting our ballots together, representing the MAC in a disgusting way. Charlotte does come in at number 2. There is a couple other American teams, but one of only a few American teams on here. So Charlotte, we're thinking by far the worst team in the American Conference as of how things stand here in the, I guess how things stand in the post springtime. Number 3 though, got the Warhawks of Louisiana Monroe. So right off the bat, we got a ULM mention, baby. Let's go. Speaking of that ULM mention, baby, Reed, you actually like some elements of this football team. You have them a little bit more higher regarded than maybe some of us as a consensus.
Yeah, for context, I put ULM at 131 out of 138. So not that much higher on them consensusly. I think they just have a little bit of continuity compared to the other teams that I ranked below them. They returned 9 starters overall, which is, for the teams that I ranked below them, I mean, it's more than the teams that rank below them. They have continuity at both coordinators. Brian Vincent going into year 3. He currently has a record of 8-16, but I think because of the continuity, 9 starters returning, I'm kind of high. I'm higher on them than our group consensusly. So, and I think Chaney coming back at running back is going to be a huge returner. He didn't play at all last year, out with an injury. So I think having their starting running back return, being fully healthy, is going to have a huge part into Louisiana Monroe coming back and, at least being somewhat competent, having somewhat of a pulse.
Yeah, and this is not necessarily a knock on Brian Vincent. I think Brian Vincent is a better head coach than what people give him credit for, because that first year he almost had this Warhawks team competing in a bowl game, and then they fell off a cliff in like the late October and November timeframe. And then last season they did get off to a decent start. I will say that, and then they got into conference play, and then they just completely fell apart in conference play. So one of the things that I do worry about is, and this is not even a Brian Vincent issue, it's more so they deal with a lack of resources with their football program compared to some of their peers in the Sun Belt, and then also as well just the lack of momentum as a program going into next season. I don't. It's going to be a tough third year for Brian Vincent. I hope that he can get back to where he can show that he's capable of getting this team back to a bowl game. But at the same time, and this is just the nature of the job for him, he just doesn't have a lot to work with. Because I know one of his star players, the running back that did take over, well, he ended up transferring to UAB, who happens to be on this list as well. So, they didn't really bring much in a transfer portal. You're hoping that guys internally can develop. We'll see if Brian Vincent can do that.
Yeah, and one more quick thing on ULM. Noah Fleming's returns. That's a huge retainment for this roster. Had 80 tackles total last year, 10 tackles for loss on defense, 3 sacks. That's going to be huge for Ernest Hill coming back for his third year as defensive coordinator, or his fourth year, as defensive coordinator. So, I mean, he's going to be the standout on this defense for ULM. He has to be unconscious again this year to be able to, carry that defense for the most part.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have to, show some things like on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see if he gets there. But for now, going to have the least benefit of the doubt in the Sun Belt. But certainly going to be a few other teams from that conference that is going to join our partners in ULM, such as Mid Tennessee. Well, not a Sun Belt team, but I mean in that kind of almost Sun Belt territory. Actually represents the CUSA. Mid Tennessee comes in at number 4. Actually received 2 of the 4 first place votes. We do have somebody, AT, I'm looking at you, that was a lot higher on this Mid Tennessee team than the rest of consensus. So I will let him explain that at a later time when he pushes that graphic out to the masses like tomorrow. Georgia State does round out your top 5, though. The Georgia State Panthers come in at number 5. So Georgia State, do have a I think Del McGee is still there, but a big year from Del McGee. We'll see if he can get out of the basement here in the third year, or will we see the Panthers look for a new head coach there? Number 6 comes in with Sam Houston. The Bearcats come in. And Reed, I will say this. You are surprisingly high on this Sam Houston team in spite of what happened last year. We thinking some kind of renaissance for Phil Longo?
I'm hoping so. I projected so. So I think, again, 7 stars returning Landon Locke is back at quarterback. I think that has to help with my thought process a lot, being able to have continuity at the quarterback position. Unfortunately, they return no starters on the offensive line. Jake, you know how I am in the trenches. They return no starters up front, which is a big question mark. I think they're gonna be okay. Let's not forget this team won double-digit games not too long ago. As soon as they came up to the FBS level, so let's not forget that they did go through a ton of overturn once that did happen. Though I think Phil Longo can figure it out, right the ship. And I think their portal addition, they made a couple of portal additions that I think are going to be key to this team being a not drastically improved team, but at least taking a step back in the right direction this year with Phil Longo at the helm still.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing is Phil Longo fit to be the long-term answer at head coach for Sam Houston going forward, because his prior stop at Wisconsin when he was the offensive coordinator wasn't necessarily what I would call inspiring. And I think we saw some of that in his first year as a head coach of Sam Houston, just having that massive turnaround, going from being a 10-win team and being in that conversation to win the CUSA a couple of years ago, and then you lose your head coach, which, he's done wonders for Temple already. Temple not even on this list. They absolutely would have last year with the embarrassment that the last coaching staff was for the Temple Owls. They were an easy money line pick to go up against before their new head coach came into town. So I do worry about that from that perspective. They also lose one of their best offensive tackles. He was rated as a 4-star transfer. He went to Washington. So one of the bright spots on this team, leaving. You hope that the defense can come together and maybe you see this offense have a little bit more consistency moving forward. But I really wasn't that high on Phil Longo, to be honest with you. I would not be surprised if they're sitting in close to the basement for the CUSA, to be honest with you.
Yeah, again, I don't expect them to be competing for like the conference championship or anything, but I think Sam Houston's definitely they're gonna be better than last year. I I will say that right now. I think they're gonna be better than last year, but it's not gonna be a drastic step forward.
Yeah, and I hear you. I think it's definitely going to be one of those things where they're going to be better. Uh, but I also look at it as well. They can't really be worse either.
This is
Like,
true.
I mean, I guess you could go 0-12 like UMass did last year. Which I mean, of course, Golden Flash is a agenda pusher. Has to come in obligatory UMass too high. We hear you, and your complaints have been noted. Colton, our complaints department will handle that for you as soon as possible. But yeah, with that being said, I think they're better. I just don't know if that's going to show from a record perspective, though. So I think it's going to be a tough year, and I think there's going to be some tough questions about whether they're going to keep Phil Longo around or do they maybe go in a different direction.
I mean, we could talk about that with a handful of these teams at the bottom if their coach is going to stick around through the end of the season, even.
Yeah, and one of those coaches, well, one of these teams actually technically made a coaching change. It wasn't because of how it's normally done. So that's Northern Illinois at number 7. We do see a brand new coaching staff. Thomas Hammock left to take a offensive analyst job for Seattle. Their defensive coordinator is stepping in as the interim head coach. So I do think the defense is going to be okay, but I'm sure this offense has a lot to do with why they made it down here. But you have some hope for this NIU squad, though.
I think it's just like in my thought process, I think I think they're gonna rally just solely because their coach did get up and leave in the middle of the offseason. Like that's a perfect reason to be able to rally and find some positivity in your season. Now, on the flip side of that, you only bring in 2 portal players, which is bad. That's really bad. But I think also just a change of scenery. It is to the Mountain West. It's going to be a step up in competition from the MAC for Northern Illinois, which I still don't understand at all, but that's for a different show. A lot of unknown defensively is a big question mark for Northern Illinois, but Telly Johnson returns at running back, 124 carries, 690 on the ground last year. I think he's going to be the bell cow. They're going to have to rely on him a lot next season for the Huskies. I mean, he's pretty much their whole offense, at least from the looks of it right now. They only returned 1 starter on the offensive line. Obviously, 2 portal players in. None of them were O linemen, so it's going to be an uphill climb for Northern Illinois. But the teams I put below them I think are going to be a little step behind them, for me personally.
Yeah, and I will say this about Northern Illinois to give them some credit. That defensive coordinator, all things considered, actually did a solid job of running like a competent defense. Because I know that they only finished middle of a pack from a points per game standpoint, but they got zero help from your offense. The contribution that NIU's offense was provided is if you ever played NCAA 14, you ever play a Road to Glory in NCAA 14, you play on the defensive side of the ball with base sliders and everything like that. That was essentially what it felt like watching NIU football last year. They had little to no help. They were constantly losing the turnover battle. They were constantly losing the time of possession. And so for the fact that they had absolutely no assistance from their offense last year, and they still finished middle of the pack, that is really kudos to that defensive staff last year, which is still remaining intact for right now. It's just a matter of, okay, your defensive coordinator that led to your defense being solid last year, he now has to wear that CEO hat. Is he going to still handle the defensive play calling, or is he going to delegate that to somebody else? That's something that I'm really intrigued about, as well as the fact that maybe they are dealing with some karma for leaving the MAC. I mean, there's rolling hills. I've been out there in Illinois before a couple of times, Reed, but I could tell you from personal experience, there was no mountain sighted in DeKalb, Illinois. But maybe my NIU contingent can correct me if I'm mistaken on that regard.
I think if Northern Illinois fans are going to respond to us at all, it's probably going to be about George Dimopoulos. Apparently, he had a good spring. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly either, but apparently he had a pretty good spring from the reports that I read. So
okay,
maybe a receiver to watch out for.
Yeah, so that could be like a sign of hope as we're getting a little bit closer to the start of college football season. But moving on, a team that is actually still in the MAC. We got the Ball State Cardinals. Second-year coaching staff, Mike Yurovich, is looking to build off of a 4-8 season. Reed, you do not love this Ball State team at all.
Nope. Where I mean, I don't even know where to start, honestly. Quarterback's a big question. They're having a quarterback battle through the spring. Nothing's been confirmed yet. Returned 3 stars on the offensive line, okay, but I mean, they had a below average offensive line last season. You returned 8 starters overall. Only 2 of them are on defense, so that's a huge question mark for the defense. They returned the least amount of production in the MAC, which is a huge question mark. A lot of question marks, mainly on the defensive side for Ball State. Even though they bring in 13 players from the portal on the defense, it's just a bunch of unknowns right now. So,
yeah, and I will say this, and I'm right there with you. I wasn't very high on Ball State. I actually had Ball State right where they landed from the group consensus standpoint. I do think that there is an upside that exists, though, that if the like the portal pieces come together, because they do have at least the second best portal class in this conference.
yeah.
I do think at least an upside assists where they are going to Detroit to play for a conference championship game, because there is at least a somewhat navigable schedule here once you get into conference play. Now, playing Ryan Day in Ohio State to start the season out, you got to do what you got to do to get your money. But, if there's a best case scenario, and that is this portal class does come together and they come together and become a really cohesive team, then Ball State is going to make us look really silly here. There is that ceiling that exists, but from a baseline perspective, until that portal class proves itself, I'm right there with you. I certainly have some questions in terms of what this team ends up being, because even those portal guys that they brought in, I mean, it's all potential. Not really anyone that they brought in that was productive at their last stop.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that stands out for me with Ball State, they in 1-score games last year, they were 3-1. Very hard to replicate that stat year over year. So, I mean, you flip that, they could be even worse off than they were last year. So, Ball State, I have second to last in the country right now, just solely because they don't return a lot, and the stuff that they do return isn't anything that like screams off the page for me. So, Ball State, I mean, you got to show it to me. You got to prove it for me.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll keep it pushing and keep it moving, though. We got at number 9, we got the UTEP Miners here. Now leaving the CUSA and joining the Mountain West. If that's a conference realignment move, that actually makes sense. And I'm looking at you. A few other teams, I'm looking at you as well. But shade aside, UTEP at number 9. UAB comes in at number 10. And I will say this: I think UAB, is going to be a better football team that I think is being perceived here. You have to realize UAB was a solid to good football program before Trent Dilfer took over this head coaching job. And then Trent Dilfer ended up being a head coach, and he ruined this program. And I know that it was a lot of what Trent Dilfer did, because the first game after he was fired, UAB goes on and pulls off an incredible upset against the Memphis Tigers. That is an absolutely egregious stain that your team is significantly better to the point where you can beat Memphis, who was competing for American Conference title at that point in the season last year. Yeah. So Alex Morrison does end up taking over at that particular point now. The question is, was Alex Morrison going to actually solve the problem, or was he actually part of the problem? Because he was on Trent Dilfer's staff as an offensive coordinator. Offense wasn't the problem last year. UAB, they were capable of putting points up on the board. It was that defense that was absolutely atrocious. I mean, they almost gave up 50 points to Alabama State. No offense to Alabama State. They were fun to watch on the FCS ranks, if you love HBCU football. But the fact that you gave up almost 50 points in against an FCS opponent, I mean, that really lets you know how things go. So I actually think just from an addition from the subtraction standpoint, getting rid of Trent Dilfer, this team is going to be better moving forward. Not good enough to leave my top 25 or bottom 25. We got some bad habits around here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a true stickler. I guess I got to leave the show. But I think UAB, they're not going to be the worst American team. Maybe they won't make a bowl game, but they're not going to be bottom of the rung in the country.
No, they won't be bottom of the rung in the country. I think Alex Mortensen, like you said, subtraction equals whatever analogy you just said is perfect to describe Alex Mortensen. Getting rid of Trent Dilfer, putting Alex Mortensen as the head coach of this team is definitely going to be a positive move in the long run for UAB. The question is, you did bring up that defense. 39 portal players brought in, 9 defensive linemen, 17 defensive back 7, so linebackers and cornerbacks. So over 25 players brought in on defense through the portal. Can they find continuity on that side of the ball? Time will obviously tell. I can't see UAB get out of my bottom 10 just solely because we've talked about it a lot with other teams. A mass portal haul. Can they all gel together in time to actually be a coherent unit by the time of the season? Time will tell, and I'm kind of questioning that right now. But I think Alex Mortensen in the long run is going to be way better off for this Blazers team than Trent Dilfer was, without a doubt.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm not sure if Alex Mortensen is going to be the long-term answer. But I mean, just like this defense, they couldn't get any worse. It really felt that way, and I know a lot of UAB fans would probably feel the same way that I'm feeling. And it's the same with that defense too. I mean, maybe they can't get much better, but they also it literally cannot get worse. I would feel, right, but only time will tell on that. But we're gonna move on here, Vel. Number 11 coming in here. We got Sacramento State coming in. I think Sacramento State, is going to be an interesting team in the MAC this year.
You want to break that down a little bit?
I figured there was something that was going to come out of your mouth afterwards, but
no, I was waiting for you to do a breakdown, do a breakdance or something like Alonzo Carter. But continue.
Well, you see, if I did that, I would not be coming off of the ground, and then my wife would have to help me up. And the last thing that I need is for those of you in the live audience to come out and see me struggle to get back into my chair. I'm not old, but I'm not as young as my co-host here, right? So for the sake of everybody that's watching, we're not doing that. Alonzo Carter probably still could. He's former MC Hammer backup dancer. He was a former offensive coordinator at Arizona, did a really nice job in developing Noah Fafita, helped Arizona Wildcats have a pretty nice season last year. And Sacramento State has shown that they're willing to at least put in the resources, right, to be successful. Yeah. It's kind of a go big or go home situation here, just in terms of, well, if it doesn't work out, is it going to be one of those Sacramento State has to go back down to the FCS in a few years? So it's either they do really well and get themselves to where they actually want to be, such as being in the Mountain West or being in the Pac-12. That was the ultimate goal of Sacramento State. Or is it going to be they're going to go to the FCS level? So I don't know how that's going to look on the field, but at least from a resources perspective, they are going to at least put in the resources to make sure that they're going to try to be successful at the FBS level. The biggest question I have, and I was actually really intrigued that they made this head coaching selection. Alonzo Carter is going to be a first-time head coach at the FBS level, and this is a really important moment in Sacramento State's football history.
Yeah, without a doubt. And to go along with that, it's not just Alonzo Carter that's new. Both coordinators are new. They return no starters in the offensive line. Their entire offensive line is going to be new. A lot of the defensive production from last season is not there anymore, or at least the players that do return didn't get a ton of playing time that's noteworthy. So it's a whole lot of new for Sacramento State, let alone playing at a new level of football. And I could see him potentially be bottom of the barrel in the Mountain West, or in the MAC, excuse me. I can't even see why are they even in the MAC. So I could see him potentially be bottom of the barrel. I'd see him competing with UMass for the bottom of the barrel in the MAC and Ball State. So it's gonna be a 3-horse race Who's going to be the worst in the MAC?
Yeah, but at least what we have from Sacramento State is that we're going to get the ball sack game, which I know for
Yes.
those of you that are sickos that are watching this, we're very excited about that. We also get the FBS debut bowl, trademarked by CFB Red Zone. Y'all can fight me on that. Got the Warriors ready to go and everything between them and North Dakota State. Buys are probably going to roll over the Hornets, but it is what it is. And on top of that, I do believe we got some other intriguing matchups. They play Eastern Michigan in week 0. That's going to be a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm curious to see what Sacramento State looks like long term. I think they'll be competitive. I could definitely see them, like you said, Reed, being the bottom of the barrel in a worst case scenario, though.
I think this year they're definitely going to be bottom of the barrel. But as you pointed out, they are investing a ton into this football program. So I could potentially see them just buy their way out of the bottom if it is that bad this season. I mean, I don't know what their NIL funding is off the top of my head, but I mean, they're doing a whole stadium overhaul. Obviously, they just bought their way up to the FBS level. So, I mean, I could just see them potentially just dive deep into the portal by season's end and potentially just buy their way out of the gutter.
Yeah, I mean, that could very well happen as well. But for now, they sit as our 11th, 4th team in the country, at least how things stand here in the post-springtime.
I hate that I just said that a team could buy their way out of the. I hate that I just said that. Actually,
I thought about muting you, but I'm going to let it slide.
You should just mute me sometimes. I know if Colton was here, he'd mute me. So I mean,
yeah, well, he can hop on the call if he really wanted to do that, but. He don't want that smoke, especially when we talk about Coastal Carolina later, because I saw that comment. Yeah. And anyways, number 12, we do have the Akron Zips. They are eligible for a bowl game this time around. They are smart enough academically to participate in bowl season. So clap it up for Akron. You get to play in a bowl game if you're
good job, Joe Moorhead.
Yep. Shout out to Joe Moorhead, making sure spent some extra time in the study hall, and it worked out for Akron. So congrats to them. Southern Miss does come in at number 13 for us. The Southern Miss, I mean, you and I are on the same level on, so I don't think there's huge surprises there. Number 14, though. Number 14, we do have New Mexico State, and you're intrigued by this Aggies team.
They're kind of I didn't really know what to do with them. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really know where to put New Mexico State. They returned 9 starters from last season. I mean, they were a middle of the pack team for me. They were somewhere in between the last 15 spots, and they kind of just fell where they fell. Honestly, Tony Sanchez, I think, can right the ship. I'm believing in this Aggies team.
Yeah, and I will say this to your point. They are returning a decent number of starters, but at the same time, I mean, this was a team that, I don't think they've won like 4 or 5 games, though, ever since Jerry Krill left to become an assistant over at Vanderbilt, taking Diego Pavia and Eli Stovers. So there's a decent number of, I would say, returning production here. But it is all returning production, good returning production when you weren't very good last year either. I think they were, I want to say they were 3-9, and Tony Sanchez has won 5 games the last 2 years. So it's a big year and a big moment for Tony Sanchez to prove that he can at least get New Mexico State back to a point where they can be decently competitive. Because this is a somewhat difficult place to win that. It's not like New Mexico as a state is not very talent rich in terms of football talent. And right now, with what New Mexico is doing across the street, you're playing second fiddle when it comes to the in-state talent that is available, that's actually capable of playing FBS football. One thing that I will say positive about this Aggies football team, they do have the 3rd best transfer portal class in this conference. So kind of what we talked about with a Ball State earlier tonight. There is a world that exists where New Mexico State absolutely gels and they hit constant home runs in this transfer portal. The the starters that return from last season, they take significant steps forward as well, and they could be that surprise team that plays in this USA Championship. There is that ceiling that exists where they can get there.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that happens because you're really asking a lot. I mean, it's a lot of if statements that I had to throw out there for maybe, and even then, if all that happens, I don't know if New Mexico State's playing for a CUSA championship, but it's possible for them to make a bowl game. I will say that about them.
Yeah.
Not sure if it happens, and I'm not sure if Tony Sanchez survives this year if there's not significant progress.
Yeah, this is definitely make or break year for Tony Sanchez. And to your point, I don't think they're going to play for a CUSA title or anything, but they're intriguing to me because they added a ton of production from the portal, over 5,000 snaps via the portal from the FCS level specifically, which is good for top 25 in the country for snaps wise joining the team. But again, it's all from the FCS level. They had 4 starters on the offensive line or 4 offensive linemen that were starters at their previous spot. So that could be positive, bringing in players that have starting experience on the offensive line. Defensive line looks to have good experience as well. Tori Gethers, Sone Apu, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, Nicholas Sessions. So there's a handful of players on the defense that are going to be, contributors for New Mexico State next season. It's just, again, a bunch of portal players added, mainly from the FCS ranks. Are they going to be able to take a step up at the FBS level? Time will obviously tell about that. But again, New Mexico State was kind of an in-between team for me. So they landed where they landed. But I'm trusting Tony Sanchez to right the ship. I think he wants to, at least try to keep his job. I would think so.
Yeah, I would imagine so too. So we'll see. Definitely, like I said, there is a world that exists where like New Mexico State finishes 8-4, and it's an incredible year for the Aggies, and you have something to build off of. And hopefully this time around, if that happens, Tony Sanchez wants to stay maybe a little bit longer because we know how it goes for the G6 world. You have an incredible season, and then your staff and your best players get poached. So we'll wait and see here. Number 15, though, I do see that the Nevada Wolfpack are on this list, and I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit incensed. I'm a little bit incensed that I see the Nevada Wolfpack in this top 15. I don't think they should be on this list. I think Jeff Tody, with what he did over the course of the offseason, and particularly in the month of November. I know most of the season, it was a pretty ugly season, okay? They lost to Mid-Tennessee, and Mid-Tennessee got beat by Austin Peay by multiple touchdowns. So it looked rough for most of the year for the Nevada Wolfpack. But I will say this, the month of November, they really started to turn on in the month of November. They finished 2-2. They beat Wyoming on the road, and that's a decent football team in Wyoming. They also blow out San Jose State, and I know San Jose was a disappointing team last year in its own right. Had some, at least some sort of consideration, and they actually made it on this list as well. But, I mean, you blew out a conference opponent, so I think Jeff Tody is building some momentum, winning 2 of the last 3 games. I don't know if Nevada's going to make it to a bowl game necessarily, but I also don't think that Nevada is going to be at the bottom of the barrel in the Mountain West. I actually think they're a better football team right now than San Jose State at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think they're a better team than San Jose State. I have them above UTEP personally. So I don't think Nevada is going to be the bottom feeders this year. They only returned 4 starters overall. Not good. 2 of them on the offensive line. So take that for what you will. They're kind of, again, they're another between team for me, but I view other teams in the conference lower than them. So they kind of fell where they fell. They have good return production on defense, and a couple portal additions that they did add, I'm hopeful about. So Dylan LaBarbera, name to watch for Nevada. 88 tackles this year, 17 for loss, 7 sacks. Dude's a beast. So
yeah, and he was one of the best defensive players in that entire conference, and the fact that they were able to get him back, I mean, that pass rush is going to have some juice.
Yeah, without a doubt. And most of the questions for Nevada for me are on the offensive side. Quarterback's a huge question mark right now. I think it might be Carter Jones. Time will obviously tell on that. He wasn't the greatest when he did play last year, so it's kind of a mixed bag offensively for Nevada right now, but I have hope in that defense, honestly. Kane Ione returning as defensive coordinator. So I that's where most of my hope in Nevada is right now on the defensive side. Question marks are on the offensive side for me personally.
Yeah, and it's more of offensive consistency because I think there is, like there's something in there on their offense when they're able to put up a 50 burger against San Jose State, as I talked about in the month of November. It's just a matter of can they have that consistency? Not necessarily putting up 50 every other game, but if you could put up, be in the 30s or maybe be in the high 20s so that your defense doesn't have to do everything, kind of like a better NIU.
Yeah.
And Nevada has more mountains than NIU, by the way. That's also why they're ranked, well, technically higher than NIU at this point. That could be a recipe for success as well.
Yeah, for sure. Also, shout out Golden Flash's agenda pusher. Akron, not a 500 or better season since 2017. That's despicable. That's despicable work in the chat.
Yeah, that's why they are a popular team to rebuild in EA college football. We march on. Now, speaking of the MAC, though, we do have another MAC team coming up. Eastern Michigan comes up at number 16. And listen, I like Chris Creighton, and I know you really like Chris Creighton as well, man.
Jake, I was going to let you take Eastern Michigan because I know how you feel about Chris Creighton in this Eagles team. I know how passionate you are about Chris Creighton. So the floor is yours, my man.
Listen, you want to here? I got to sit up in my chair for this one. So, but listen, I look at this Eastern Michigan team at number 16. I have to ask myself one question and one question only, ladies and gentlemen.
What are we doing?
And it shows a lot that like two of the people that slander the Eagles' great name could not face the music of like here live in person. Just
exactly
incredible work. Chris, do you guys understand how hard it is to win at Eastern Michigan first and foremost? Before
on a gray field,
yeah. First of all, or I'm not going to touch up on the gray field. The gray field will not be slandered here tonight. Enough is enough. But what I will say is that Chris Creighton does not have a very good record. You're going to look at his record. You're going to see that he's 20 games under 500 in his tenure. He's not very good, but that's simply not the truth. It is incredibly difficult. It is when he got there, this was a bottom 10 program in the country. And he's turned this program into a respectable program, maybe not necessarily getting to the point where they're making it to conference championships at a reasonable clip. They're not there. That's not Eastern Michigan, but they're at least at a point where the majority of the time they're making it to bowl games now over these last few years.
Yeah.
Are they winning the bowl games? Not necessarily either, but they're at least getting to a bowl games. And so you look at Chris Creighton, just based off what he's done compared to the resources that these other programs have in the MAC, and you could really make the argument that this is a top 5 coach in this conference. Mm-hmm. Really incredible coach. He is an undervalued coach based on solely his record, and it's usually an end-all be-all. There's always some caveat to it. Oh, and for the first time in a long time, they actually get their starting quarterback to come back as well. Noah Kim, solid quarterback. He can play. Came
from Michigan State.
Came from Michigan State. Did some good things for the Eagles last year. He's going to have another year of experience under his belt. So Chris Creighton had less to work with last year, and he still almost made a bowl game. He's going to have more to work with here, and I think they do actually make a bowl game.
I also think they make a bowl game. They return 11 starters overall. 5 on offense, 6 on defense. Return offensive coordinator alongside Noah Kim, so that continuity there is huge. Defense is going to have some pieces. Bryce Llewellyn, Barry Manning, Jason Marshall, like experienced players that have gotten significant playing time for Eastern Michigan are going to be back on this team. This is a bowl team for me. They barely are in the bottom 25 for me. They're literally in the last spot for me. So this is a bowl team for me. Completely agree with you, Jake. I don't know what our peers are thinking with this Eastern Michigan team. I mean, they returned a solid amount of production from last year.
Yeah,
I mean, and the MAC is anyone's to win, basically, except for 2 or 3 teams potentially. So, Eastern Michigan potential dark horse. Heard it here first.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, and candidly, I look at this Eastern Michigan football team, and I think best case scenario, I think there's a ceiling that exists here where they can be 9-3 this year. I really think that they could surprise some people. And for the true sickos, incredible year for the Eagles. More likely, they're probably going to be hovering around 6-6. Probably end up losing their bowl game. They finished the year 6-7. That's been the typical EMU MO, but that's still not a bad year by any means.
Ceiling I have for them right now is 7-5.
So
6-6 is my projected record for Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yep.
So anyways, I'm gonna get off my rocker. I'm gonna move on here before I see some more.
Just breathe. Just breathe, Jake. It's okay. Just breathe.
So Bowling Green does come in at number 17. We are going to see Eddie George enter his second year. He does get a full offseason, though. So that's going to be a nice benefit for Boston College after their head coach decided to leave in the middle of spring ball to take a not a head coaching job. He took an NFL job somewhere else. So Eddie George get a full offseason this time around. We'll see what he can do with it. 18. And I know the Golden Flash is agenda pusher. I know you're in here in the chat right now. So I'm going to need you to cover your ears right now. So Kent State is here at number 18. And Reed, you and I were talking about this. We think they should be at least a bottom 15 team in the country.
Yeah. I have him seventh bottom. I don't know about you, Jake, in your personal submission. I have him seventh bottom. They are number 132 in the country for me.
Yeah, so I personally had them in the bottom 15 personally. They were my 13th worst team in the country. And I want to start off positive for Kent State. Mark Carney did an incredible job last year.
Yeah.
He took a team that was really the laughingstock of the FBS this time last year, 1-23 under Kenny Burns. And the only reason that Kenny Burns got fired, it was not for performance reasons, but it was because of some credit card debt that was on the university credit card for things that did not pertain to bettering the university. I'm just going to stop right there. And Mark Carney takes over as the interim coach. And to be honest with you, if there was a couple of bounces the other way, we're talking about Kent State playing in a bowl game here.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. I think Mark Carney is potentially, the best Kent State coach of the last decade. At least
I don't know about that. Sean Lewis was there though. Like Sean Lewis was on Demon Time during the COVID season, so I don't know about all of that.
But that's the COVID year. Like that's not even a real year. That was fake.
Game with that offense though. Like what do you mean?
Yeah, they could do Demon Time. They could do the same with Drew DeShields this year. It's just the major question is I don't know who's toting the ball in the backfield alongside him.
I'm not necessarily. So I'm glad that you point that out. I'm not even necessarily worried about what that running game is going to look like. I'm worried about who Drew DeShields is going to throw the football to. First of all, he lost Cade Wofford to Cincinnati. That was their wide receiver one for this Kent State football team last year. So that was a loss off rip. And then they also lose to Sean Martin on the other side, who's going to transfer to Virginia. Had over 500 yards of total offense, 4 touchdowns last year, too. They do have the realest Clark. All name team guy, was one of the best kick returners in this conference last year, was actually a first team all MAC player in the kick return game. And so you're going to hope that maybe he could do more than special teams. Credible special teamers. Can he actually produce on the offensive side of the ball? They do also have CJ Young coming back too. So there's some bright spots here, but I look at this team and, they lost quite a bit in the transfer portal from a star power perspective. And really the only addition that they added in the transfer portal that I'm intrigued by, to be honest, was Shamaje Bridgman, linebacker for Michigan State, a former blue chip player. So I think the linebacking room could be a sneaky good room, but Mark Carney's going to need to do an incredible job once again if they want to at least stay around this 5-7 that they were last year.
Yeah, with receiver is also a big question mark. Drew DeShields is a proven pretty solid quarterback, all things considered. It's just I have no idea who he's throwing the ball to. Wayne Harris, Ardell Banks. It's not a ton of production that returns from last season. On a positive note, they returned 14 starters overall. They returned all 5 stars in the offensive line last year. So there are some positives to work with here for Kent State, but I I think it's regression to the mean here for the Golden Flashes
Yeah,
personally.
and Drew the Dimes as Golden Flash's agenda pusher like puts it in the live chat. It's going to keep him from everything falling off the cliff and being the absolute worst in the bottom of the barrel in the MAC.
Yeah.
I think they're still going to be better than the UMass. I still think they're going to be better than a Ball State or a NIU who's a Mountain West transplant. They're definitely going to be better than Akron. Again, according to our Kansas State partners, what the heck is a zip? Riddle me that, Batman. But I think because there was some talent loss around Drew Dimes, it's going to be like you mentioned, like maybe a little bit of regression to the mean.
Also, that's a crazy acronym that Colton just used in the chat, but I wouldn't put it up on screen. That's a crazy acronym you just used in the chat, Colton.
Yeah, that's a big pause. Okay.
He uses that acronym and then says, "Don't listen to these bums." Like, why are you using that acronym and then saying bums? Like that's crazy. But shout out to Realist Clark. That's potentially the best name in college football.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I mean, you got to be good if that's your name. And I mean, to be fair, like he was electric in the kick return game, so he's living up to it. We'll see if he can make a step up. I'm rooting for him for sure. 19 though. 19, we do have the Rice Owls. We do have the Rice Owls are like hanging in there. Made it to a bowl game last year. We'll see what this Rice coaching staff can do. So they check in at number 19. Number 20, we do have Missouri State. Brand new coaching staff. Ryan Beard leaves for Coastal Carolina. In comes Casey Woods. We think that's going to have a little bit more of an impact than maybe what's originally anticipated.
Yeah, without a doubt. Casey Woods, I think, has a lot of upside in the long run. Former SMU offensive coordinator. They returned 10 starters from last year. Skylar Locklear, Henry Bellin, quarterback battle. Nothing's been finalized yet, but I think Missouri State just takes a small step back just solely because of the head coaching change. Excuse me. Ryan Beard did a fantastic job there. Obviously, he's now at Coastal Carolina, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think this is just a reset year for Missouri State personally. So I personally had him 12th bottom, but that's only because I see him taking a step back for now.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. And I know that we've had some people from the Missouri State fan base that like tell us that, hey, we thinking that this is going to be the type of staff that maybe like Casey Woods might not be as good as Ryan Beard right now, but we think the rest of the staff could be better than what Ryan Beard had. So in the long term, this could work out. And to be fair, looking at this Missouri State football team, I will say this. I think Casey Woods, did an incredible job at SMU as the offensive coordinator, does have some playoff experience. So maybe that could translate well. But the fact that they also lost their quarterback to graduation, Jacob Clark was one of the better quarterbacks in the CUSA last year. Mm-hmm. And so going to that from Skylar Locklear, who was a part-time starter at UTEP potentially, this offense could take a step back.
Yeah, without a doubt. They only returned one offensive lineman. They had 3 offensive linemen from the portal, but they didn't have much experience at their previous stop. So the offense has a ton of questions. I think Missouri State holistically just takes a step back this year. But again, there's a ton of upside, in my opinion, with Casey Woods as the next Missouri State head coach, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. I think Casey Woods will end up working out, but maybe we'll see them take a step back from a record standpoint as they entered year number 2 of their FBS transition. But hey, full disclosure here. So for number 21, you see that South Alabama is on there. They actually did not make the list. South Alabama was actually meant to be San Jose State. San Jose State is actually the 21st ranked team in the country. So when you see this posted on Twitter tomorrow morning, and it will be posted on Buzzer. Again, shout out to our friends over at Buzzer for letting us go live on their social media site. Y'all the real MVPs format. We'll say this: San Jose State is going to be on the graphic instead of South Alabama, and I'll say this: I don't think it's going to be they're kind of in the same boat as Nevada, and I didn't have Nevada in my bottom 25. I don't think that it's going to be that horrific, but I'm certainly not as optimistic as I am last year about this team either.
Ken Niumatalolo. I think Ken Niumatalolo is not a representation of what the San Jose State team is at the current moment. I loved him at Navy. I think he did a great job at Navy. I'm actually kind of upset they moved on from him when they did, but obviously Navy's a completely separate story right now. So San Jose State, they only returned 4 stars from last year. 2 of them at least are on the offensive line, so that's a positive. Quarterback is a question mark right now. Looks to be Hawaii transfer Luke Weaver. Got limited game time last year, but looked solid in the game time that he got. Running back is a question mark for me. Receiver outside of Jordan Anderson is a big question mark for me. The production behind him is little to none. There's some holes to fill on the defensive line. From the most part, not a lot of returning production on that side of the ball. So it's a lot of question marks for San Jose State right now. And I don't want to say Ken Niumatalolo is going to be on the hot seat after this year, but if it goes as bad as I could project it being, it could be a make or break year next year for Ken Niumatalolo.
Yeah, and I will say this about San Jose: it definitely is coming with a different vibe than this time last year. Because I remember like last year was ironically when I was just entering the space. I was really looking at San Jose, and I was also looking at their schedule holistically when they were in the previous iteration of the Mountain West. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, hey, this schedule is manageable enough. They have a nice like starting core on the offensive side of the ball. There is a chance that San Jose can make a really like a Cinderella run to the Mountain West title game. They're really like that Cinderella dark horse, of the popular dark horse. And you know what they did, Reed? They did me dirty, Reed. They went 3-9. They get blown out by Nevada. And they to be honest with you, the 3 games that they won was because of that offense. If they didn't put up 30 points at least, they were not winning games. They were 0-9 in games that they did not score at least 30 points on the offensive side of the ball. Now, when they reached that 30-point threshold, they were 3-0. So they did have that going for them. But now that Walker Egat's going to be gone, they lose Danny Scabaro in the transfer portal as well. So is that defense going to take a significant step forward? And then, like you mentioned, is their head coach has a game just passed him by? He had some really good success at Navy, but that was well before the NIL era. Now the NIL and the transfer portal era is in full swing. He just hasn't been the same. So, I rarely like to follow the like the Gen Z and the Gen Alphas on this, but I think exception can be made here. Is Ken Niumatalolo, is he washed?
Potentially. And you brought up a good point there about being previously a Navy in the pre-NIL era. You go to a school in the new NIL era and you come from a service academy, you don't have any experience in NIL at all because the service academies don't recognize that at all. So is that to his detriment? I think a little bit, partially. They were able to bring in 21 players to the portal, okay, but none of them really, again, scream off the page at me. So, I think it's going to be an uphill climb for San Jose State. I think they could potentially be one of the bottom feeders in the Mountain West.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, when this graphic does come out tomorrow, it's going to have San Jose State on the graphic at 21. It's not going to be South Alabama. So that's a oopsie on CEO Jake's part. I will be put out the pasture for execution by Colton when we get off the show here tonight. So it was nice knowing you guys. But going through the like the rest of the list real fast, we do have Wyoming at 22. Pretty good defensive unit. Does Jay Solville have an offense at Wyoming? I think that's going to be the big question there. Yeah. Coastal Carolina does check in at number 23 to the dismay of 0-0. And fun fact, I will say this real quick about Coastal Carolina. 3 out of 4 of us put Coastal Carolina in the bottom 25. 0-0 was the only one that did not do that. So, Colt, if you want to do a 1v3, definitely let us know, like in the group chat later tonight.
Again, it is nothing personal against
Nothing
the staff
personal.
and personnel of Coastal Carolina. We love the Teal Nation, okay? We want to reiterate that.
Yeah, we just want to alliterate, and we alliterated this at the beginning of the show.
And we love you, Ryan Beard. We love you, Ryan Beard.
Yeah, please don't unfollow me, Brian Beard. 24, we do have Colorado State coming in at number 24, and then Buffalo comes in at 25. They're going to round out our top 25. So that's how this bottom 25 ends up shaking out. Did have a few teams here that almost made this list. Oregon State, Utah State, and Central Michigan nearly made it into the bottom 25. They were all at least just a few points shy. The one that I'm most curious about is FIU. So I had FIU. I was the only one that put FIU in the bottom 25 because I like Willie Simmons as a head coach. I think he did a really good job. I think there is a certain energy as long as Pitbull lives up to his contractual obligation in terms of like creating a Mr. Worldwide anthem for the FIU Panthers. They did lose their starting quarterback. I think there is a downgrade at the quarterback position. And another thing that is they lose not just one of their best defensive players on the team, they lose one of the best defensive players in this conference. Zion Chapman transfers to Minnesota. That's going to be a really significant loss.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Josiah Taylor can make up some of that production, but that losing him is going to be tough to refill that production without a doubt. FIU just missed for me. By the way, they would have been 27th bottom for me. So
yeah, so I mean, it's the type of year where I'm looking at CUSA, and I don't think that they're going to be awful by any means. I think they're going to be like a middle of pack team in the CUSA. I think they still make a bowl game. But I talk about it. We were talking about when we were doing our top 25 version.
Yeah.
Of the G6. If you're one of the best teams in the CUSA, the CUSA isn't looked as highly as some of the other conferences, even along the G6. So when I say that you're a middle of the pack team in the CUSA, that means you're probably not going to be looked very highly in terms of the national picture for the G6. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with FIU.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like Louis Simmons, I do like his like transfer portal pieces. I just, I don't love his roster going into this year.
If there's anyone to potentially stand out for FIU next year, Greg Gaines the third, 1,000-yard receiver at Rhode Island, joins this Panthers team, and they returned 4 stars in the offensive line. So,
yeah, so the offensive line could be okay, although they did lose an all-conference offensive lineman to the transfer portal as well.
Yes.
But for the most part, the line should be okay. I think this roster is going to be okay. They're going to compete within CUSA action. It's just I don't know what they're going to look like from a non-conference perspective moving forward. But hey, we made it through this bottom 25. We had a real chance to be a sickos tonight. And Reed, I think it's safe to say that we actually did it.
Again, we've covered a good portion and majority of the country, and I'm kind of proud of us for that.
Yeah, I'm honestly really proud of it. And I just thought about it when I was driving home like earlier today. It's like, wow, we're actually going to cover about 80% of college football in 2 weeks. So I'm actually extremely proud of that. And not just of you, Reed, but really the rest of our team who they couldn't be here on the show tonight. But I mean, they were all really helpful in doing this, which is really helpful because one thing that we want to mention before we sign off tonight, and I'm hoping that I can actually go forward and try to find this this particular tweet. So for those of you who don't know, we are planning on trying to make it to a handful of games this year.
Yeah.
And one thing that we wanted to try and do is try to go ahead and come up in terms of a tour name. So you guys have probably seen this on Twitter, but this is the mock-up of the flag that we have as of right now. And so I want to give you guys here on YouTube the opportunity to do this because I gave this opportunity to those of you that are coming from Twitter, we need a name for the tour. What you see in the middle right now is it's a placeholder, but we're always open to suggestions. You can see on the side, we got a handful of suggestions from our Twitter community. So we're going to ask you, like, if you made it all the way to the end of the live show here tonight, first of all, really appreciate it. Glad you were a sicko. Just like Reed and I are very sick people. And you're going to see how sick I am, especially like on Twitter, because we have some diabolical things planned as we get through like the rest of this month and the rest of June as well. But in the meantime, if you have a suggestion for a tour name, let us know in the live chat. Or if you're watching this after the fact, you can leave a comment for us. And what we'll probably do is we're gonna look at all the suggestions, and whatever is the best name, that is gonna be our tour name, and that's gonna be revealed sometime in the summer tentatively. So
yes,
Reed, I know you're ecstatic about this flag when our buddy College Football Only, made this flag like in the group chat. I'm pumped for what the people come up with, man.
I'm definitely excited because I already know for a fact there's going to be a few places that I've never been before. You as well, Jake. So I'm just excited to get to see these campuses, these environments that look awesome on TV. You hear great things about them, and we potentially get to go to experience them in person. So I can't wait for it. Also, another thing, if there's any specific game or school you want us to try to go to within reason, because we all have geographic limits for the most part. If there's some place you want us to try to get to, let us know also in the comments or the live chat right now, because we are completely open to suggestions. We have a tentative schedule between us right now, but we are subject to change. Anything is a full go right now. Also, if you have any potential sponsors, or if a sponsor somehow sees this and you like what you see, just hit us up.
Yeah, because I mean, we're like, full disclosure, like compared to some of the other brands in college football, we're broke. But we definitely want to try to get out to some of these places.
Yeah.
Because what really makes this game an incredible game is really the diversity of the people. Because
sure.
you think of how big the United States is and how many fan bases there truly are out there, and just the opportunity to be able to meet people, period, is something that I'm absolutely ecstatic about, and I'm always something that I enjoy, just from a general expand the worldview, which is why I love doing a national college football show, because everyone's welcome at the table, unlike some other places where just aren't talked about as much, and that's a shame.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's a great point you make. That's why we do what we do, to reach out to the smaller teams, the smaller fan bases, that don't get a recognition from other national college football programs and shows. So we try the best we can. We obviously don't know as much as some of these fan bases, but we try our best, and we try to give them some light of day every once in a while. So we appreciate the other sickos, joining us tonight and every other night, for sure.
Yeah, but hey, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for enjoying the show here tonight. If you've really enjoyed the show, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Twitter, hit that like button, hit that follow button, and hit that like subscribe button. But one last thing that I wanted to plug before we sign off here tonight is that we had the opportunity to stream this live show live on Buzzer, and we've been really big proponents of Buzzer, given that it is a relatively new social media platform that's focused solely on sports, and a lot of folks are really worried some about AI taking over like a lot of aspects of our life. This is not the case over at Buzzer. The AI slot is not over there. It's by humans for humans. So if you're looking for a new social media platform to talk about sports, definitely go ahead and give Buzzer a look as well. And we really appreciate the opportunity allowing us to stream on their social media and be part of their lineup here tonight. So, hey, with that being said, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hope you guys are all out there having a good one.